Hi, I just watched the Christmas-themed action movie Silent Night, directed by John Woo. It was released in 2023, and it's the story of a man devastated by the loss of his son to a stray bullet from gang warfare on the streets of his home city, who retreats into anger and rage, and over the course of a year trains himself and starts researching the background of the gang so that he can take his revenge, scheduled for Christmas Eve the next year. The film's great gimmick is that, bar a few exceptions, it has no meaningful spoken dialogue at all. Our main character is shot in the throat during the incident, leaving him unable to speak. And as a result, there's no dialogue from him for the entire movie and very little dialogue elsewhere. There's some written down, which I felt was a little bit of a cheat. We see on screen a few text messages, there's some written text, but generally the film is portrayed without dialogue of any kind, and the storytelling unfolds almost entirely visually. It's also John Woo's first American production in 20 years. His last film before this was Paycheck, the Ben Affleck, Uma Thurman adaptation of a Philip K. Dick novel in 2003. After that, he went back to his native Far East and made a number of films for China, and this is almost his comeback, effectively. But it noticeably did quite poorly at the box office, and in the UK it went straight to Sky Cinema. It's not terrible by any means. I was never a big fan of Woo's work because most action films leave me cold. I don't really like the whole, macho machismo type school of action. I prefer something a little more urbane, a little wittier. James Bond is a great love of mine. But this, I thought, was well executed. The attempt to tell the story almost entirely visually without any meaningful dialogue. I think it's a brave attempt at doing something original, and a lot of the film reminded me of Stranger Things in that it's taking worn tropes that we've seen elsewhere and a lot of times in a lot of places, but mixing them together in a new combination. So we have the revenge story, we have the Christmas story, we have the silent story and the action story, all merging together in a new combination to create something that's trying to be fresh, that's trying to be different, that's trying, by Woo's own admission, to challenge him and to change the kind of vocabulary he uses in his direction. It's much more restrained, it's much more serious. There's very little in the way of fast cutting. Instead, there's some noticeable slower takes and slower paced scenes of action unfolding over long takes, which it's at the very least an attempt at doing something different, an attempt at doing something fresh. Joel Kinnaman in the lead role, I think, is quite good. I read that he tried for a method approach initially by not speaking at all during the length of the production, but he broke almost immediately when he realised how lonely that felt. And he then was able to fold that knowledge into his performance. But overall, it's not a great film, but it's an interesting attempt by Woo at doing something different, at doing a comeback on his own terms by making an independent film, clearly with a lower budget, for an independent studio, and trying to do something different and not just play the greatest hits. It doesn't completely succeed, and although the Christmas element is sort of kind of baked into the movie, it's kind of extraneous. You could remove that with a rewrite and it wouldn't affect the story at all. But I think it's a noble attempt at doing something fresh and different. Even if it doesn't quite succeed, absolutely marks for effort.